So we've got a lot of awesome questions to answer today. So one of the things that I do on my channel is to go through the comment section of the various videos that I post, and I extract some of the more thought-provoking comments and good questions. And I put them into a specific video so that I can answer them. It's my way of giving back to my community and trying to be as engaged as I possibly can. So in today's video, we're actually covering 2 weeks worth of videos because I was out of town last week and didn't get a chance to film one. So we're going to cover 2 weeks worth of videos, which means there's a good number of questions. So I'm going to try to blaze through it and get to the meat of everything as much as I can. If you're new to my channel, you are tuned in to the leading performance, nutrition, and fat loss channel that's out there on YouTube. So we got new videos every single Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday at 7 a.m. Pacific time, and a bunch of other videos throughout the week as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into it. The first video I want to talk about was, does MCT oil help you burn fat? The video, just like the name implies, it talked about the adrenaline response, the epinephrine response that you actually get when you consume MCT oil. Really interesting stuff. I actually found that literally when you consume MCT oil, it triggers you to have a spike in adrenaline that boosts your metabolism up. So resting energy expenditure actually increased. So the first question comes from Vladimir Velichkov. He says, is Palm MCT as good as Coconut MCT? Please write a few words about this. Yeah, essentially the same thing. Coconut MCT is a little bit better in my opinion. It's a better carbon chain, but Palm MCT is still gonna be doing the job. It's still good for you. Vijayendra Shah says, when to consume MCT when not on keto? So the interesting thing is, MCT oil, even not in keto individuals, has been shown to actually help restore some of the lost energy that the brain would ordinarily lose. So like we have a lot, like it's a rather inefficient process inside the brain, so we lose energy. So MCT helps with that. So I usually would recommend doing MCT in the morning still. The next question comes from Dave Lowe. He says, I have a tablespoon of MCT oil in my first mug of coffee in the morning. How often should you take MCT oil? I read an article last night that said it was beneficial to consume MCT before bedtime. Yeah, that's actually a good point. You can take it before bed, but again, you're gonna have an adrenaline spike. So not the best time to really have a spike in adrenaline, in my opinion. I think having it in the morning with your coffee is still the best bet. And as far as how often, I think once a day, sometimes twice a day, but once a day is all you need. Remember, there's still calories in it, so you don't wanna go overboard. Next question comes from Arquio11. It says, does coconut MCT capsules with medium chain triglycerides count as good intake for MCT? 3 capsules serving provides 800 milligrams. Yeah, actually that does. So, I mean, you might want to take a little bit more than 3 capsules. You might want to double that. But yeah, MCT capsules are more or less the same thing. Okay, Peter Schott says, so if doing intermittent fasting primarily for weight loss, would it be helpful to include some MCT oil in the morning coffee? I realize that would give us calories, so it messes with the fast, but not sure how much that might affect things as far as the weight loss goes. Peter, yeah, you just want to set up your days so that you have strict fasting days and then you have more lenient fasting days. I do the same thing. Like I'll fast and like where I'm really strict, and then I'll have sort of a lenient fasting day where I'll let myself have some coffee with MCT. I just don't count it as an official fast day. I count it as a more of a specific fat fasting day is one of the things I talk about. Next question from Joey Blades says, I have recently found out that I have a food sensitivity to coconuts. Does this mean that I'll have a sensitivity to coconut oil or MCT oil? I also have a sensitivity to green olives. What about extra virgin olive oil? Yeah, so olive oil I can't really attest to, but the MCT you shouldn't have an issue with because it's purely refined and it's out of the coconut. So you probably don't have an issue with the carbon chains of the fats. You probably have an issue with the actual nut component of the coconut, tree nut. So next video was my top 4 coffee alternatives, great for afternoon energy slumps. So this was all about giving you some ideas to really get energy without having a bunch of caffeine. Okay, I'm someone that's very sensitive to caffeine, but I also love my caffeine. So in the morning, I try to have a bunch of it, and then in the afternoon, I usually switch over to a different mechanism of getting some energy. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the questions here. I do recommend you check out that video if you're looking for that though. Ryan Murphy says, does the ginseng tea break a fast? Great info as always, don't stop. Well, first of all, thank you, Ryan. Second of all, ginseng tea does not break a fast, so you're good to go, man. Sarah Curran says, great video, Thomas DeLauer, but I have a question about these drinks. Will any of these drinks break a fast? Mud water has calories, so that, but what about the others? And will the antioxidants in rooibos diminish the effects of a prolonged fast? So the antioxidants in rooibos might diminish the effects of a fast. No studies on that one specifically. The studies are done with vitamin C and vitamin E. The interesting thing about vitamin E is a soft gel, so that will definitely break a fast, so that shouldn't help anyway. Vitamin C hurt a fast because it provided antioxidants, which basically nullified the stressful effects of the fast. So it's hard to say with rooibos. I would give it a shot and see how you feel. It's all kind of, up to the individual, right? And then your other question as far as like some of the other things. So mud water, yeah, that would break a fast, but it's perfect to drink during keto. The other ones, you're good to go. Hugo says, hey Thomas, great video. I always consumed Huevos tea and mine is flavored with natural bourbon vanilla. Is that okay during a fast because there's no maltodextrin or sugar in it? Yeah, you're good. It's usually just vanilla extract. There's no calories there. Angelica Torres says, Thomas, I make me a cinnamon, fresh ginger, and fresh turmeric tea. I love it warm without sugar. Would any of these ingredients break my fast? So it depends who you ask. I honestly would say no. I think it's kind of a tea. You're just making an elixir. You're not mashing it up and actually consuming it itself. You're just getting some of the polyphenols and some of the vitamins and minerals and the other positive components, the antioxidants. So I think you're good. Alex says, I have a question for Thomas. I work out fasted in the morning and then work general labor until 5. Then I eat when I get home. Is that routine okay? I don't want to lose the hard work that I put in if I have a cup of coffee at 10. I'd appreciate a response. Yeah, no, you're good. I think you're totally fine with that. As long as you're sleeping well and everything's working for you, then there's no reason to change that. Okay, the next video was the celery juice one. So this was celery juice every day, legit or total joke. So the reason I did this is because there's so much stuff about the celery juice craze right now. And the reality is the celery juice craze is just that. It's a craze, but we can pick up some positive things from that. With any fad or any craze, we learn new things because we become subject matter experts. So recently, we're all becoming subject matter experts in celery with all the stuff that's going around about it. Julie Morris says, my question is why the juice? Can you just eat it or blend it? Yeah. In fact, it's better to eat it or blend it. That way you're going to get more of the actual fiber from it too. Noname says, hey Thomas, would you recommend celery smoothies for benefits? Again, if you can keep it within your macronutrients, then totally. Celery seems to be powerful. A lot of it comes from, again, though, just the overall mineral value. Javier Vasquez, says, why does celery juice break a fast? How caloric is it? No sugars, right? It does break a fast because there's still calories, even though it's what is called a net neutral or net negative food, where it takes more calories to burn it than it does to actually get anything from it. It still will break a fast, so let's go ahead and keep it out. Joshua Guzman says, what do you think about drinking the original V8 vegetable juice to get in veggies despite the high sodium? Highly processed, and I don't think you're getting all of your veggies in. Okay, so you're getting juice, still not the same as anything else. So I think it's fine, and you can get a low sodium version, but don't lean on it, don't count on it. Vanilla Gorilla says, I've heard a lot about the pre-workout effects from celery, gaining a bigger pump and feeling fuller. Do you think there's anything to this? Yeah, it all has to do with the sodium. Celery has a high degree of sodium. You're better off just having a little bit of salt or that Redmond real salt or pink Himalayan salt or whatever you want to put in your water just to get yourself a little bit more salt. Better bet. The next video was Keto for Women versus Men, What You Should Know. This video has been long awaited on my channel. People wanted me to do a video specifically talking to the benefits of keto and everything what you need to do if you're a woman. So let's go ahead and break it down a little bit, but let's answer some of the questions. If you missed this video, you're going to want to go back and check it out. You can just find it on my channel. AS says, some people say women should do cyclic keto because of the hormones. Is that true? I kind of touched on that, but no, cyclic is actually going to be harder on them because it's going to undulate those hormones. It's going to make it more of a crazy roller coaster ride, so you actually want to just stay consistent. 999HQ says, hi, what can you eat to get omega-3 if you don't like fish? You can use algal oil, you can also use flax, you can use chia, anything like that. Not the most efficient way to get omega-3s, but better than none at all. Thao Nguyen says, much needed video. Thank you for addressing us women over 40. Much appreciated. Quick question. You had mentioned that you recommend women not do IF and the keto diet until keto adapted. What happens if I already did both IF and keto? I'm in my second month. Well, in that case, you're already set. So, I mean, you can just keep on rocking the way that you're rocking. Just make sure that you're keeping your hormones in check. Barefoot's Food and Fitness channel says, Thomas, I asked this question on the previous video, but I'll ask again. I'm asking a question for my wife, but also interested in myself. I can imagine there are times within the female cycle when it's beneficial to add more carbs and times that are suited better to restrict them to get optimum health benefits on a keto low-carb lifestyle and to live in balance with your hormones. It's a good question. So if women are really in tune with their bodies and they know that they're about to go on their cycle, it might not be a bad idea to either go deeper into ketosis or to back out entirely. But I don't recommend cycling a lot. So see, if you're going to cycle out of keto, you wreak havoc on your hormones a little bit. And you just, whatever you do, you have to remain consistent. If you're going to pull out of keto before you go on your cycle, then be consistent with that so that the hormones don't have a big shift, because keto plays a big role in modulating hormones. And the deeper in keto you are, the more your glycogen stores are going to actually fill up. So you're going to have extra carbs. So you're going to have the carbs that you need just in your system to process your menstrual cycle, which yes, does take a little bit more energy. It is a little bit more of an anaerobic process. Next question comes from Regan Wolf. Question, does this also help when you have early menopause? My friend is only 41 and has already had her menopause. Is it possible to reverse menopause? I can't really answer that. Reversing menopause is really kind of a tough thing. People that do go through early menopause, there are some instances of people reversing that, but I'm not fluent in that, so I can't really answer that honestly, but I wanted to mention the question in case anyone else has an answer. Deanna E says, do you have a plan we can follow to taper into the keto diet fully? I don't have a specific plan, but maybe I could write something out and put it up. That actually wouldn't be a bad idea. Essentially, you just want to start easy and just ease into it. Phase out the carbs. When you start feeling sluggish and run down, then increase the fats dramatically and let yourself get into keto. So you have to go through a little bit of a gray area where you won't feel great, but it's better than dipping in all the way and messing up your hormones. Carla says, my husband is concerned about me making this a lifestyle versus utilizing it for weight loss. He'd like me to stop keto once I lose the last 40 pounds. He's just worried about me. Honestly, I think you're better off staying in keto than you are bouncing out of it. But the reality is, go 3 months on, 3 months off, 3 months on, 3 months off. That way it keeps your weight in check, keeps you fat adapted, and you get the benefits of both. Safar13 says, thank you for the amazing tips. Small question, what if we're fat adapted, but go out of keto for a day or two and want to get back in? Is it safer not to fast? No, I think you're fine to fast either way. I mean, honestly, it's not gonna make a big difference. You just wanna limit doing that whole process in the first place. Next video is exogenous ketones do not put you in ketosis. Here's how I use them. So I wanted to do this because exogenous ketones are just vastly overrated. Okay, I'm not a fan of them. I feel like the exogenous ketones that are like a salt, not a ketone ester, are a lot more, it's just undiscovered, right? And they don't do a whole lot for you, and the studies aren't that impressive. So that's just kind of my take on them, but I did a video talking about when they could be used. Strumento says, it seemed like MCT oil has the same benefits, plus can help me promote nutritional ketosis. Why not jump into MCT oil straight? My point exactly. Like, honestly, nutritional ketosis is better. Brian Bracken says, great video. What do you recommend for pre-workout concoction before a run day or before weight training to keep intensity and energy levels up? Black coffee, beta-alanine, citrulline malate, and possibly some theacrine. So that's going to be a great combo there. Chad Phyllis says, hey Thomas, thought you would say something about muscle sparing during a calorie deficit with them. In a past video, you mentioned that might be a good use for them. Let me know if it's still the case. Yeah, but it's not that powerful because the increase in beta hydroxybutyrate is just not that much. You get more probably just by having some MCT oil. So it all depends. Like, I wouldn't use them in a fasted state, so they're not going to help you in a fasted state. And if you're going to use them in a fed state, you might as well just have MCT oil. Maria Ramos says, will these ketone supplements be beneficial and help curb appetite when fasting? Yes, they would, but I don't like using them during a fast because it kind of breaks a fast. Alex Valdez says, can you use them so they won't kick you out of keto? Let's say on a cheat day when you know you're going to take in a little extra carbs. That'd be the worst time to take them because what's going to happen is then your body's going to have these ketones that it's going to burn and all the extra carbs that you took in are going to go to storage. So that's a really bad time to do it. Let's see, next video. Do you have a food habit or food addiction? Okay, this was breaking down the difference between if you're addicted to food or if you just have a habit of eating. Okay, because a lot of it's really just habit and there's a ghrelin connection with that with particular hormones. So let's go ahead and dive into this. I recommend everyone watch this video. It was really undervalued in my opinion. This video should have blown up more than it did simply because the content is amazing and everyone needs to hear it. Because everyone that I know, everyone that I talk to that's ever struggled with weight loss has struggled with some degree of food addiction, including myself. Okay, Taja Dukic says, does it mean that we can get addicted to workouts? Because I'm not very happy until I do the workout and the rest of days I go crazy. Absolutely, definitely can be the case. Myself included, my sister is someone that I definitely talk to about that a lot. Like she's depressed on her non-workout days. Like it literally happens. Okay, we get addicted to that. And we have to pick our addictions, right? You just don't want to go overboard. So if you're an addicted personality, then you're going to get addicted to stuff. It's just kind of how you're wired and it's hard to break that. So you just got to pick your battles. Like, tone down your workout so you still work out, but get addicted to a softer workout than a harder workout. Okay, so then the next one comes from The King. It says, Thomas, am I understanding this right? If I consume vegetables every day and they make me feel really good, could I become addicted to eating vegetables? It doesn't seem to make much sense because they have a ton of vitamins and minerals. And the point is you can create a habit and you can get addicted to that. It's just a lot easier to get physically addicted to sugar. So it's more of a habit with vegetables that you're just enjoying the reflex out of. Mike Hill says, how do you approach someone who you think might have a food addiction? Is there a way? Yeah, that's a tough one because I think showing them this video might be a good place to start, but how do you introduce the video without seeming contrived, right? That's a tough one because food addiction is something that people suffer with constantly and they don't realize it. And even if they do internalize it and realize it, it's very hard to overcome because it's socially acceptable to eat food and you can't just ignore food. So it's really difficult. So I wish I had a solid answer for that. And honestly, that poses a good question in my mind. I'm sitting here racking my mind trying to think about it. So let me noodle on that because that's a really tough one. How you approach someone on that can make or break the end result. Scott Fisher says, okay, so I guess this question is if somebody claims to be an emotional eater, is that more of a habit based on the emotion or is it an addiction to satisfy the emotion? Good question, addiction. So whenever you're trying to fix an outcome like that, it's usually an addiction. So like it's kind of the same thing with alcohol, right? Someone gets, they're trying to satisfy an emotion. They're sad, they're depressed, they're anxious, so they go and they drink alcohol. That's kind of the thing that happens. And we create a habit that reinforces an addiction. Potts V1 says, I've always known that mine is habit more than addiction. With food, fizzy drinks, now that's different. Great vid explaining the difference. With long-term rewards, can't you fabricate a reward? Since your aim is to go to the gym 3 times a week, each week you do this and you treat yourself to a new top or a night at the cinema. You can, but then you become dependent on that reward. You have to intrinsically let yourself become excited about what you're doing. I always say, like, never treat food as a reward, right? So like, don't go a week of dieting and be like, I am going to reward myself tonight, unless you are very trained and conditioned to do that, because otherwise you start looking for that reward. It's Pavlovian, right? It's like Pavlov's law. You're looking for that response. You're looking for that stimulus. So just be really careful with that. I would say definitely a non-food item reward would be better. So yeah, like a new tank top or something like that. Or what I would say is reward yourself with a fun workout. So have a hard workout throughout the week, then reward yourself with a hike or a run out in the woods, where it's like you're rewarding yourself, but you're still getting the activity. Next video, lack of salt can make you crave sugar and crave sweets. This was a cool one. So this was all about how I basically uncovered some interesting science about the connection between sweet cravings and salt, being salt deprived. And things. It's just wild. So you have to go back and watch it because it has to do with the NST receptors, some really wild stuff. I got some backlash on it because I talked about a product in there, but I think the reality is most of the people in the comment section came to bat for Redmond Real Salt because these guys have nailed it. So anyhow, I digress. The first question comes from Chief Trichome. He says, so how much salt should I be taking in daily on the keto diet? It all depends on the person. I usually recommend having like a half a teaspoon in your water at all times. So just like constantly have it come in. You're honestly not going to really overdo it. If you have some salt and you have excess, you're going to urinate it out. Carla Westerton says, thanks for the video. How much salt should we consume per day? If you're non-keto. If you're non-keto, yeah, you can be a little bit less. You know, I'd say maybe a quarter teaspoon, third of a teaspoon. Bruce Daly says, a lot of us take diuretics for hypertension. The theory being that we need to remove excess salt. How do diuretics relate to this in keto in general? I'm going to direct you to watch my keto blood pressure video. So if you just go to your Google search or your YouTube search and type in Thomas DeLauer blood pressure, that'll help you out. It actually talks about how sugar is more of a culprit than salt. So with diuretics, you should be fine still having salt coming in as long as your sugar is low. Draw the Word says, I looked at some table salt and sea salt ingredients and both have added sugar. Wouldn't this kick you out of keto or fasting? Yeah, a lot of them do have that. So yeah, it would kick you out if you had too much. That's why I recommend different kinds. Kyle Cross says, Thomas, what are your views on salt loading before a workout? Huge fan. That's like my most powerful pre-workout is having salt. It makes a huge, huge difference, especially with endurance work. Nicholas Boscano says, cool, how much salt per gallon do you recommend? Okay, per gallon, depending on your body weight, I would say like a teaspoon to the gallon is usually good. Veronica Rodriguez says, what is the best ratio in adding salt to water? How much salt to how much water? Kind of answered it before, but like a teaspoon per gallon, maybe a little bit more. So why would lines get crossed and my brain knows I want salt? Why would I look for sugar? You didn't explain. Well, I did explain. It's basically they tested that when people had sugar, it solved the problem. So they were craving salt, but then they go ahead and they have sugar, okay? And they have sugar and it satisfies the salt craving. So what happens is they reinforce that feedback loop and then the body starts craving sugar every time you crave salt. Exercise performance on a keto diet was the next video. This was all about how we actually perform, like what happens when we're on a keto diet with our exercise, pros and cons of keto and exercise. Interesting video if you work out at all and you're doing keto. First question comes from Ariana Lurie. She goes, if I'm going intermittent fasting and keto, should I hold my meals for before and post training? Yes, you don't want to eat before training. Eat your post-workout meal like an hour after your training. Andrew Valencia says, for someone who is 6'5", 220, what would you recommend the limit of daily carbohydrate? I would probably say for you, 50-ish, maybe 30, depending on how keto adapted you are. Okay, then there's one from Terry Lee Atkinson. It says, hey Thomas, I almost always agree with you. My workouts on keto have been great except martial arts training. I suffer there. Long distance runs, short sprints, weightlifting is all good, but there's definitely a decrease in martial arts training. That's interesting. Have you tried doing like targeted keto where you have maybe 15 grams of fructose from like an orange, 15 grams of sucrose or starch from like a rice cake, and a little bit of salt and protein post-workout? Like just like 20, 30 grams of carbs and then just like half of it coming from fructose and then not having any carbs throughout the rest of the day. That might make an improvement. That's kind of a way to do targeted keto. So next video was my vegan keto results. Overall felt pretty good. Okay, so this was cool. So the funny thing with this video is this was, by the way, I did a 2-week vegan keto challenge. So I went vegan keto for 2 weeks and wanted to measure the results and see how I felt. I felt pretty good. I actually felt like it changed my body quite a bit in a good way. The funny thing is, so many people harped on me and said it looked like I aged 10 years after I did a 2-week vegan keto challenge. I feel like, first of all, I feel like it's very, 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 very subjective. So I think those of you that were not wanting to hear what you wanted to hear were able to make those assumptions and make those claims. But the reality is that I had been up for almost 2 straight days with a sick kiddo. So I think that's probably why I looked a little run down. Anyhow, on to the questions. The first one was from Honori. It says, do you think going vegan keto is more cost effective than regular keto? No, it's definitely more expensive if you want to do it right. But honestly, it tasted pretty good. The next one comes from Diuretics. Says, where can we find some of the recipes? If you go check out my wife's Instagram at Amber DeLauer, she's got some really good ones there from the vegan keto challenge. Next question was Sarah Emerson. Which vegan cheese do you recommend? Did you buy any legumes? I didn't end up doing any legumes. So I was going to, but I didn't really feel like I needed them. I had a little bit of chickpeas like the first couple days, but I think they might have been messing me up more than anything. I can't remember the name of the cheese that I used, but it's one that was made from coconut oil. So it's mainly coconut oil based, and it was pretty darn cool. So it didn't have any nuts in it either. It was totally nut-free, dairy-free. I really liked it. It melted really well. If I remember the name, I'll put it in a video. The next video was my cognitive boost routine, what I do on days that I film. So it's sort of a biohacking video, like what do I do to get more mental boost? Like what's my routine like? So highly recommend if you're looking to improve your cognitive function, you go watch that video. Jago says, Thomas, have you ever done any research on lion's mane mushroom for memory gains? I haven't personally done research, but I experienced amazing results with it. That's why I always talk about it. I do talk about that. The hippocampus function, the hippocampus improvement when you use lion's mane is phenomenal. That's why I always talk about 4-sigmatic. 01 Serif says, during sports like HIIT, is it still viable to drink BCAAs? No, don't. Just get rid of them. Donnie Bible says, is it better to have the cold shower in the morning or evening, or does it matter? And how cold should it be? As cold as possible and in the morning. Vibaster says, but do shroom coffees break your fast? So does mushroom coffee break your fast? No, as long as it doesn't have the coconut one in it. So the one that I reference in that video does have coconut, but you can get any one of their products and doesn't necessarily have the coconut milk powder. Kyle Cross says, Thomas, can I do all these things every day of the work week, or is it best to save them? Save them for when you need it the most. It will make a difference. Next video was eat this fat, not that fat, comparing different fats. Cool video for keto people, just being like, hey, not all of them, but if you have an option between this fat and this fat, go for this fat and don't use this fat. Nothing getting thrown under the bus, just wanted to give better options. First question comes from Diane. It says, Thomas, you never said anything about coconut butter. What are your thoughts? As well about tahini and sesame butter. I love tahini, but it's high omega-6, so be kind of careful. Coconut butter is awesome too. High MCT, high lauric acid. Brian Albert says, Thomas, what about pecans? Seems to be a good alternative to some of the nuts discussed. It is low carb, but it's very high omega-6. Okay, it's one of the lowest carb, highest fat nuts, but so high in omega-6 it doesn't always make my list. I do like it though. Tahani Wariat says, thank you for this. What's your opinion on Brazil nuts? I've compared them nutritionally to macadamia and they're pretty similar. Yes, they're very similar to macadamia nuts, but they also have more minerals. So they have a little bit more carb content in them. I think macadamias digest a little bit easier, but Brazil nuts are great for their mineral profile. Freddie Benelli says, hi Thomas, thanks for the video. What do you think of using heavy cream? I like to put it in my protein shakes for flavor and up the fat content. Use coconut cream. Heavy cream, you're still looking at the kind of the gnarly, cream effect. I'm not a huge fan of dairy, so I always go coconut cream whenever possible. Bob Eldridge says, what's your opinion on tahini? Yeah, tahini, again, sesame seed butter, essentially. Good stuff, high omega-6, use it in moderation. What is your opinion on salmon oil versus cod liver oil, asks Clemensets. Which one gets rancid more quickly? Salmon oil is going to get rancid more quickly, in my opinion. Okay, and the next video, and the last one we're going to talk about here, was the Beginner's Guide to Prolonged Fasting, 24 to 72 hour fasting instructions. If you're looking to do a longer term fast, you need to go watch this video. Perfecting Me says, can you please go a bit more into what supplements you take? Or this video covers what not to take, but I'm curious if a daily vitamin, magnesium, potassium are okay. Basic water-soluble vitamins are generally okay. Magnesium, potassium, things like that, but you're better off to just not take a whole lot of anything. That's why I said it's easier for me to list what not to take than what to take, and just cut it all out. Gerard F. says, Thomas, how do you use IMF for prolonged fasting if you're going for a blood test that includes blood glucose levels? Yeah, that's a good question. I usually fast for 24 hours. That's usually a good way. Jordan Wilson says, so no fish, e.g. salmon, for breaking a fast? No, not a fan of it. Keep it lean, keep it clean. Cornet Duvidorden, that's a long one, says, during the last few hours of my fast, I experience muscle tightness in my forearms. As soon as I eat, this tightness goes away. Does it have to do with lack of magnesium or any other cause? Could be anything, probably a central nervous system response, catecholamine response, adrenaline causing you to tighten up. Thin Lips says, do I include fats with the 4 to 8 ounces of meat when I break the fast? Nope, keep the fats out of the equation, nice and lean and clean. John Rule says, great video, Thomas. Can we use lemon during the fast? I'd be okay with lemon or apple cider vinegar. It depends how aggressive you want to go. Andy Cryan says, hey, Thomas, I often have a hard time sleeping during prolonged fast. Yes, that's a common thing. Can't really avoid it. You're going to experience that. I experience it too. It gets better the more you do it. Mary Lynn Ritchie says, thank you so much for excellent content and science of why. One question, could we have the cordyceps and lion's mane? Yeah, you could, but again, how aggressive do you want to go? I recommend with a prolonged fast, just keep it simple, okay? A little bit of green tea, a little bit of things like that. A little bit of lion's mane is okay here and there, but it all depends how aggressive you want to go. Celine Puggy says, would you do a 24-hour fast every day or every other day? Like once a week, like one, you don't need to be doing them that much. That's definitely not something you want to do. That'll slow things down metabolism-wise, so don't do them that often. All right, I know that was a doozy, so thank you to everyone who stuck with this entire thing. If you're stuck through the entire way, then I know you're dedicated to the content on this channel. I super appreciate it. As always, keep it locked in here, and I'll see you in the next one.